All right, so our first guest is Jane Badler. We also want to introduce Marc Singer.
Oh, you came.
She says,
hi, everybody. It's a pleasure being here. And a pleasure being together again with Janie.
It certainly is.
Yeah, you have to sit down. They're very particular. Kind of yes, all right, everybody. So we're going to do this in two different stages. First, we're going to kind of discuss a little bit about the making of it, how they got involved with the miniseries. And that's what we're going to kind of devote most of the time in this panel, but we're going to open this up to questions too for you guys, because I know you guys have plenty. Just want to start off with you, Jane. I was going to say, kind of set the stage for when you were introduced to this particular project and how you approached things that were going on in your life.
Well, I was living in New York City, and I was on a soap opera called The Doctors. And I was playing Alec Baldwin's love interest. Yes, indeed. And that was quite fun. And at that time, they used to fly you out, like first class, to test for things like Fantasy Island and the A-Team. I was constantly going back and forth to LA to test. And then my agent said, oh, they want you to test for this kind of badass woman in this miniseries called V. I didn't know anything about it. And so on the way, on the flight, I read the miniseries. I had like 5 scenes in it. And I thought, oh, okay, a little role, but you know, that's cool. Because I was kind of like dying to get to nighttime television. And so I got there, and yeah, Kenny auditioned me in a hotel room. So I went in, and there were like quite a few people there, and I auditioned, and I thought, that wasn't like my best. And went back, and then a little tiny note went under my door, and it said, "Don't leave town." Yes, I think those are the words that every actress wants to hear, "Don't leave town." And so literally the next day I was in a prosthetic. They were making prosthetics of my face, and it went very quickly from there.
Marc, you yourself, you had been, you had a track record in television when you were starring in various different roles, various different shows. Talk a little about how you were approached to this project and kind of what you thought about that character.
Well, I can't do it sitting behind this thing. I'm sorry, I have to get out.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be water.
I always feel when I'm back behind these things, I sort of feel like I'm way back over here, and like I can't really communicate, you know, as well as I want to. I'd been in town doing some stuff, and Beastmaster was a Thank you. Beastmaster actually played a role in me becoming Mike Donovan in V. The producer, director, writer, the auteur, Kenny Johnson, had seen me in Beastmaster, and Beastmaster was piggybacking off of Petruchio in The Taming of the Shrew, which was something that I had done earlier. And so really one thing led to another thing, which led to another thing, and that's how he knew of me, and that's why he said, I think this guy's the right guy to play Mike Donovan. And the only reason that I brought up Beastmaster, aside from the fact that it's a story about me, and God knows that's what I love to talk about, is that well, every actor does. Is the fact that when you try to portray a character who's known as a hero, a heroic character, there's a kind of a training that goes along with that. There's a mindset. There's a whole filmic approach to playing a hero. Why does the hero act in certain ways? Why does he always present himself in certain ways? And really, you could boil it down to one thing, and then I'll get off this. I won't yak forever, but it really comes down to kind of one thing, which is that the hero, whether reluctant or not, the hero is always working, and it's true in all of our lives. This is why we all understand this, and that's why we're all together here in this room, is because it represents a certain aspect of all of us. The hero is always working to the utmost degree of his capacities for some good, some benefit, and he's working at that to the end of his capacities, or her capacities, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So there's a kind of a mindset that goes with that I had to learn, and I think Beastmaster set it up for that, and Ken Johnson recognized it. That's that.
Have an amazing party.
I traveled in Italy with Jane. She says this, but we were doing a publicity junket.
You always have amazing parties, don't you?
There's somebody under there. There's we did a publicity junket and went around through Europe, and we were in Italy. She says a flattering thing about me, but I mean, guys were climbing out the windows to see Jane when she was talking about it. I felt like I might as well have been carrying her luggage.
I was oblivious. Oh my God. Come back now.
What's there you go. What's fascinating, and I typically don't geek out on panels like this. It's really not about me, but it's really surreal and kind of awesome to be able to sit on stage with your childhood hero and your childhood crush. And it's kind of weird, but you hit the nail on the head. It's really, there was something about you, even as a kid. I was 8-year-old when miniseries came out, and was allowed to stay out after my bedtime to watch it as it came on television. And I mean, I really connected to something in you that was just like, that's what I want to be, and that kind of person with that kind of integrity, and that there was conflict there, but you really discovered yourself as the series took shape, and then you pulled that off miraculously. And it was just it's really a testament to your ability as an actor. I mean, it was really. I mean, I can't say. I'm sure everyone in here. Let's say show of hands. I mean, everyone in here. Did you respond the same way to the character? My God, as this character that was really a hero. So that's
Appreciate it. I say one other thing about that whole heroic thing is when I was a kid, heroes stood for a cliche: truth, justice, and the American way. That's what they did. And they were always for the underdog. They were always protecting the weak. There was an ethic, an ethos. And so if there's anything that I would hope Mike Donovan displayed, which was actually a conscious thought of mine, it was the passing along of that message which had been conveyed to me through the very same medium, through television and film. That's an important thing, and that we shouldn't forget what it is that we're supposed to stand for.
So, being presented this role, and we're going to talk about something in the script. I was kind of curious if there's something that did come up. Let's say you're perusing the script, you're kind of studying it, kind of looking at what is expected of you with this particular character, Diana, and then you come to a scene where it says you eat a mouse. So I want to talk a little about that scene. How you would prepare for something like that, or something that obviously there's an effect there, but there is a moment where she's holding a mouse off her mouth. It's not like. Let's talk a little bit about, you see this, where you're thinking, how's that going to go?
Oh, he wants me to stand up.
Well, it is only really if the visitor will allow this.
Yeah, this one traded on.
Oh, no, okay, no, I'm happy with that. Does you hear me all right? I would say, truly, that when I read the script, I didn't realize the impact of what eating the rat would do. I really didn't. To me, I didn't know the impact of V. You know, it's not like I thought, oh my God, everyone's going to be asking me 30 years from now how to eat the rat. It was just like another job. And I thought, well, that's interesting, you know, eating a rat. And I didn't think the role was that, like, amazing. I didn't really think about it. It wasn't until I got onto the set. And, I mean, how do you prepare? How do you prepare for someone who's like, you know, this kick-ass lizard woman, who underneath human skin is a lizard, who actually runs the ship, the spaceship, from outer space. I mean, it's not a very easy role to kind of, you know, it's not like I had someone I could question or ask. So I think that I kind of had to use a lot of my imagination just about people in real life that were fearless. And I love that. I love playing roles like that. It just gives, because in my real life I'm not like that. I'm a human with lots of fears. And so when the scene came to do the rat, I have to admit, like, I was slightly exacerbated. You know, I'm like, oh, for God's sake. You know, because everything took so long. It was like it's not like now, you know, when you have that, you know, special effects. I mean, everything then was like 2 days. 2 days of swallowing a rat. Yeah. I mean, they were like, they built a dummy, and then they built a neck, and then they had tubes running under the neck. And then they had 3 men behind me that were pumping air into the neck, so that it would go wow, 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 like that. And I was just like sitting around for hours and hours and going, oh, I don't know, he seems to think the scene is important, you know? And yeah. You know, it was like, I remember, I was like, so going, what's going on? And then we did it, and looking back when you see it, you know, it's kind of almost, it is a little bit laughable. I mean, the dummy that was made of me, you know, really does look like a dummy.
She tells it to you. She tells it to you from her standpoint. Let me tell it to you from this one. We're all veteran actors at this time. We may have been, you know, we were veteran actors at this time. And Ken Johnson said, you got to see this, you got to see this. This is what we're filming tomorrow. And that was the 2 days. That he was, tomorrow was 2 days for you. So he said, see, wait. And he brought out a mock-up of Jane's head. So Jane's head, first of all, came out on a platter, like the reverse of Salome. It came out, and it had a lever that made that jaw go down like that, because that wasn't CGI. That was the days when you had to do your own stunts, you had to do your own things.
Yeah,
and it was a transitional period technically in filmmaking. We were moving out of the era where people did their own stunts. When we did V, whatever you could think of to do, they said, go ahead, we'll do that. And they'd assemble a stunt team around it. Whatever you could think of to do, man, you'd do it. But about the head, so here we are, all these veteran actors. I've done Beastmaster. I've been with animals, and we've been fighting sword to sword and blowing up buildings and witches and all this kind of stuff. They took this head out and they said, "Watch this," and all the actors are like, "Yeah, you know, we're going to have lunch soon." You know, like, you know, remember that? We all gathered near that open stage door. We're all there. They brought in this thing. And they went like this. They took a live hamster or a rat or something like this. They said, "Let us show you how this works." And all around went like, "Yeah, you know, God, let's lie in." And they put this thing down here, and all of us went like this. Whoa!
No, that's not true, because at that time, nobody had ever done anything like that. Had they? It was just completely innovative at the time.
Now, I'm sure a lot of fans out there have done their studying and know about this, but Kenneth Johnson originally, his concept for this series had nothing to do with alien visitation or anything like that. It was kind of more of an anti-fascism plot that took place in the United States with fascist Americans and so forth. But you know, through the insistence of NBC, they really pushed on, and I guess also because of the success of science fiction in the early '80s, it was something that was marketable and sellable, kind of pushed the concept of, you know, introducing science fiction elements. But during the making of the miniseries, was that still important to everyone, certainly to Kenneth, of trying to convey these themes, but using science fiction as kind of the medium in which these stories take place? Yes.
Yeah. Well, the question then begs the question, which is more powerful, a documentary or a metaphor? And a documentary is one form of filmmaking, and a metaphor is the other. And so fiction is the metaphor. And so, again, I would go back to something like, discussing what's a hero about. Because what is it that makes a hero is really the situation that the hero or the heroine is in. And so, everybody that's out in the viewing audience that's pretending to be these people once the program is over, they're embodying the ethic in a mythic form. And so it's a matter of self-persuasion, whether you want to believe it or not. Whereas if you make a documentary, it's nonetheless equally valuable, just a different medium. And one of them is a direct communication, and the other one is, what do you think of this? That's it for that. Who's ordering pizza?
How about you? Was there anything that you really responded to in the script, like an underlying meaning, something that was deeper than just kind of a popcorn experience of watching science fiction, watching heroes and villains kind of match wits and battle and this sort of?
Well, I think at any point in history, there's always someone doing something subversively that can be quiet and can be dangerous. And I think, not wanting to get into politics, but I think it's happening now. Maybe not so quiet. And I think that we all have to be on the lookout for it at all times. For, starting to pick out people that are different, or, racism. And I just think that was part of the picture, and done in a very creative way, by using aliens, by using lizard people from outer space that were taking over the world and promising the world all clean water and all these beautiful things, but really they were extremely dangerous to the planet.
Okay, so speaking of visitors and the fact that underneath this skin they are, lizards. I'll talk a little about, reading this and then actually seeing it and, come to life. The idea of what, how are they going to make us look like lizards? And then from that, how fun was it to rip that off their face? Just ripping the skin off. Because that happens a couple of times, and you're privy to that, and it's kind of interesting. I always thought as a kid, it's got to be pretty amazing to be this hero and be able to be in a position to kind of, knock the veil away, and there's something interesting about it. But just the idea of how are they going to make us look? Are we going to look like lizards? How is this going to actually come out?
Again, it has to do with the changing of the guard, changing technology. Is that here you are on the set of, here you are on the studio lot of Warner Brothers, one of the legendary filmmaking companies in the entire history of filmmaking, and the technology that they had at their disposal and the artisans that they had at their disposal made all those things, like whether or not you were going to eat a rat. And by the way, I was thrilled. I never had to eat one. And not like that, but because they got better at it, see. And so they got so good at it that they made them out of pastry kind of stuff. And so my fear was that they were going to give me one of these and that I was going to give up my lunch. Anyway, so there were all these artisans, and there were the special effects artisans in the makeup department who had done work for Jimmy Cagney and Rosalind Russell and Edward G. Robinson, and you name it. And these sets and streets that we were filming on, they were inhabited by legendary filmmakers even in that day. In fact, while we were filming V, John Wayne was filming The Shootist in the next studio, in the next building over. On that main street back, on that little village street back there. That's the whole opening sequence of The Shootist, where he comes riding into town. That's all the Warner Brothers Plaza, little place back there. So when it came to tearing skin off your face and stuff like that, we never thought twice about it. They were going to handle it, and our makeup artist, our chief makeup artist on V was a man named Marvin Westmore. And Marvin Westmore is part of a legendary makeup family that goes all the way back to Perk Westmore, who was one of the original makeup artists in all of Hollywood history and did some of the greatest movies and legendary movies of all time. So all of this stuff in those days, we were sort of sharing the closing out of an era, and we never questioned that it would be just whatever it is whatever it is, and here we go. You know?
He would work on that show. It was a transformational show. I love Marc Westmore. He's the most beautiful man.
Extraordinary guy. Extraordinary artist. I've never had anybody apply makeup to my face in the way that he did. Now this was before what we have now, which is like an air gun sort of thing, where they spray the paint, on you, and it's very, it's almost refreshing. This was all, you know, dip and dab kind of stuff. And he used to make up my face using 3 different colors, and he would stipple it like an impressionist painting, like a pointillist painting. He would just do my face with his stippling. And it was an amazing thing. I've never seen it before or since. And I tried doing it, I tried replicating it at home to see how he did it. You couldn't even come near it. It was just astonishing. Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of the Warner Brother backlot, I don't know if anyone out there has seen Pee-wee's Big Adventure, but there is a deleted extended sequence where he's going through the lot, and there's a whole sequence where he is running through like these ships of B. There's like this backlot. There's just like cars just parked along the lot. It's pretty hilarious. And it's like years later, you know, Warner Brothers is hanging on to these ships, and you have Pee-wee on his bicycle kind of going through there. So it's funny. You check it out. I was kind of shocked. Oh my God, you know, just going back and forth. But I'd like to open this up to some questions. Anyone out there? Do we have a person with a mic?
Yeah,
Okay. So there are people sort of on opposite sides here. If you want to line up.
And please be real loud, because it's hard to hear. You hear how the acoustics are in this room, and also I've got a massive earache. So.
And it could be about anything, not just me. Okay.
You can ask them their favorite food.
Yeah.
Okay, so first, let's start on this side, since the person's actually already lined up there.
You probably get this question all the time. How long did it take you to get the makeup on, to have the green liver stuff on and pull your skin off? How long did you have to sit in the makeup chair for that?
To get the makeup on where the makeup's on and then the skin gets pulled off. How long did that process take?
I'm sure that happened to you a lot, Mark.
It only happened to me a couple of times, you know. It didn't happen so often, but it depended on how much of it there was. It could take anything from several hours to just half an hour, 40 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, it was very time consuming. I'd say 2 hours.
Yeah, it would just depend on how. Yeah, because some of it they would cut to you as it would be pulled away, or cut to the person as it was being pulled away. So obviously you could apply that very quickly, get the edges blended in, and then just do that pretty quickly. But where you had to see somebody playing a scene and a hand reached in and you couldn't tell what the difference was between one and the other until they did it, that took a long time. Yeah.
I mean, I think the things that I found most scary is, because no one's asked about it, so I'm going to say it anyway. I mean, I think that you're quite a brave individual physically anyway, you're an athlete, but I'm not really like that, and I had to do a lot of things where I got shot at, and then, you know, I had to self-detonate myself. Like in those days, you know, they'd have the detonators on you, and then you had to kind of like react, you know, like this, you know, explode them. And that was like the scariest thing for me to do that, because, I mean, you could actually get hurt, couldn't you? If you had, you know.
Well, they are all explosive devices. You know, we see them on television, and we take them for granted when you see the little bullet hits and spark hits and stuff like that. But they're all explosive devices, and it's fairly common that people come pretty close to losing a cornea now and again.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's all problematic in its
That's
own way.
probably the most adrenaline, so I used to get on set when I had to do that, when I had to get shot at and explode.
But it was also different than like your typical
Yeah.
squibs. It wasn't, it was more of
Very
a little explosion effect because it's laser and they're trying to convey a laser hit being different than a bullet hit.
Yeah, it was-
Even a squib, though, even a squib is an explosive charge.
Oh, yes, of course,
Everything
yes.
is an explosive charge.
Yeah.
It's a little different, it's true.
I'm gonna start on this side over here, guys.
Can't hear you, though.
Hi, this question was for Mark. I was going to ask about your character's tight jeans.
He used to wear character wore tight jeans.
Yes, but then I was going
It
to
was the time, right? It was the time.
Still is.
Yeah, I actually have thought about that over the years.
Great.
We'll talk later. A couple of things. I was raised in Texas. All righty then.
Thank you, too.
And in those days, again, my heroes were the Lone Ranger and Roy Rogers and people like that. And they all wore really tight jeans. And in fact, to this day, I don't know what that was. They would call what the Lone Ranger wore. But, and then also, I'm a Shakespearean actor. I'm Shakespearean trained. And so the idea of tights and muscularity being part of a performance, it just sort of, it all just kind of went together culturally for me in that kind of way. And then I thought I looked pretty cute too. So.
Actually, my real question, though, was what did you hope your character's storyline would have been if the reboot had kept going?
Okay, so, yes, so what was your hopes if the reboot actually happened or kept going? What were your hopes for your characters?
Were you the one that just happened?
Yes, I'm assuming you're referring to the
one
re-envisioning
that-
of the series, not, yeah.
The one that I was in, the
Right,
second
yes,
season?
yes.
Okay, well, I'll say first, and then obviously Mark came on at the end, so he can speak as well. That was a really interesting thing, because when I heard that the show was coming back again, I don't know why, but I felt like I had to be on it. I'm not sure if a lot of the other actors felt the same way from the original show. Probably not, but I did. And so I unbelievably flew to LA on the guise of something else. And I don't even know if Mark knows this, but then I met with the showrunner, and he met with me because I was an original member. He was placating me, but they had no interest in using me, and or any of the cast members from the original. They really wanted to take a break from the original, and which was one of their big mistakes, I think. And then the second season, they got a new showrunner, and I did it again. And I went in and said, hey, you know, and they kind of thought that might have been an interesting idea, and I had to audition, and I was up against Angelica Houston, but I won that role. And once I started working on it, it was a very confusing time because I played myself, but yet I wasn't myself, and I was the grandmother of the person who was myself, and so it was a confusing time for me, and it probably wasn't the most satisfying time, but it still was wonderful to be back on the reboot. And then I heard that Marc was coming on near the end, and that was really exciting because I thought, okay, finally, now we're going to have a chance to kind of have something interesting happen in the show. And then they killed me off at the same time they brought Marc on, and then the show ended. So that's kind of it.
That was one of the. I've often said that basically, I mean, usually the only thing that a sequel improves on is the agony. The reboot of V, my hope for it, and again, I was just stunned that they had killed you off. I mean, that was
Such an opportunity.
it was a peculiar decision, to say the least. I could say some very unkind things about that kind of decision making.
Yeah,
But
I know what they are too.
but I mean, I would put it to you: how many of you would bring back Jane Badler and as Diana, and then bring back Mike Donovan and not have him be Mike Donovan, and then make her disappear? It's a strange decision. It's a strange decision. But the other thing is that it also points to that technological difference and to a sociological difference too, which is that just exactly what you were saying earlier, which is that we were talking about it. There's an ethical difference. There's a sociological difference. Society has changed, and the producers and the writers for the reboot no longer had the connection to anti-fascism or to sociological questions of some ongoing importance, which gave the show the underpinning of real interest and dignity. And so suddenly we got into CGI land, and we got into kind of the gaming method of telling stories, where it didn't really matter if somebody had a mega structure underneath the city the size of Manhattan and nobody knew they built it. You know what I mean? That was sort of there were sort of strange, anomalous qualities in it. And so, boy, it's quiet out here suddenly. I feel very alone. Boy, I like it. I like sitting behind that table now.
So the other thing that's really, really interesting that a lot of you probably don't know, because we're in businesses, there's a lot of politics in television series. And on a call sheet, you're numbered. And so number one on the call sheet is the number one actress. And then there's number two, there's number three. And that's kind of like, it's like a hierarchy. And people kind of, on some sets, take that very seriously. Some sets they don't, but some sets they do. And if you walk into a set where they do take that seriously, if you're number 10 or 11, your role is never going to take over. You're never going to, even if it's right, even if the storyline is saying yes, yes, it just isn't going to happen. So often, I think sometimes politics can get in the way of a good storyline.
Well, if I can, I sort of lost my way there for a moment in talking about sort of off topic. You were saying what was our hopes for the reboot also. The hope was that the two of us might form some coalition and begin to pull the show back into something more like its original form, right? Isn't that right? And that was, I think, that was the greatest disappointment.
That's why I'm saying I think that's why it couldn't happen, because of the politics of the show.
Yeah, we could.
But I wish it had happened.
Bubbly, bubbly, bubbly.
Bubbly, bubbly.
Is there someone over here, or is there no one there? So everybody's lined up behind this person. So what does she have that you don't have? Everybody's back here. You guys, if you want to get, some of you go over there, so then we can actually get your questions. That'd be awesome. So the next one over here.
Yes, midway through the weekly series, when it seemed like they were getting rid of half the cast, did you feel at that time that the writing was on the wall for the series? When they got rid of like Michael Ironside?
So what you're asking is the television series that followed the final battle, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so yes, of the TV series that followed Final Battle, this continuation. You're asking about the drop-off of the original cast members as the series progressed and it's obvious that they were running out of money?
Well, did they feel...
So the drop-off of the different cast members that were part of and established in Final Battle in the television series, as the series progressed, characters began to disappear or drop off from the series.
These are the parts of filmmaking and movie production and stuff like that I find less interesting to me because I'm a writer and an actor and director, same as Janie. But these are sort of economic issues because the reason people died is because their contracts ran out. And we were not going to renew. The reason we weren't going to renew is because we were in a transitional period, not only in technologies between CGI dominant versus live action dominant things, we were also in transition from videotape and cable introduction in those days to syndication and multimedia. So a show like V, with the ratings that we had then, in these days, this is why I said this is very wonky kind of stuff. A show like V that had the ratings that we had then, even as we began to decline decline, which is a whole other conversation. That's a creative conversation, I think. A show like that would be a hit today if it had that kind of rating. But we were getting into, I forget what they called it, it was some sort of syndicated amortization, blah, blah, blah. And therefore, they didn't realize what the future was going to look like. That became part of the decision-making process, and it's an unsettled question to this day whether or not they made the right decision economically. Because bottom line, filmmaking, television, multimedia, whatever it is, the dollar is the bottom line. Yeah.
One, the TV series, just like the Final Battle, sort of lost its way because its main creative force was no longer associated with it. And I think there was an aspect of people that were trying to make sense of something that was really someone else's idea and other direction that he wanted to take it, and they just didn't really know where to go with it.
That's the creative side. That's that side of it.
I think they're really three different shows, like they're the same show, but they're three different kind of, they're three different directions of the same show. It was Ken Johnson's extraordinary vision. That was like a roots, it was just so massive in its power. And then you had a wonderful, I liked the second miniseries, which was more of an action, still I thought it worked, I really did. And then the third, which was like, kind of a soap opera in outer space, which was kind of a romp, big hair and sex and, suddenly changed into a whole other thing,
So you even like the Widow?
I think people judge things harshly, but I'm just saying it's a whole other direction.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's over here? Yeah, there you go.
Hi, this question is for Mark. I always liked the rivalry between Donovan and Ham Tyler. And I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about, contrast the two characters. Yours is more the classic kind of hero versus the way Ham Tyler is portrayed, he's more hard-edged. If you could talk a little bit about that relationship, and then when you guys finally came to blows, how much of your own stunts did you guys do when you guys fought?
The dramatic tension between Mike Donovan and Ham really lay again in the notion of whether a hero keeps in mind. Can you hear me over this?
Yeah.
Whether the hero keeps in mind the cause, the moral ethic that keeps him on balance and keeps the moral through line of the stories on track. The part of the excitement and part of the tension arises when he gets pulled, or she gets pulled offline by conflicts in their private life or by exigencies like those Hobson's choice. Do you sacrifice 10 people to save 30? Or do you even make, those are the things that can pull the hero figure offline. Whereas with Ham's character, he was driven more by, if I can interpret correctly for that character, he was driven more by a kind of a preternatural hatred. It was just, I don't care, they did wrong to me, now is time for people like me to throw our weight around and to show how effective we can be, come hell or high water. And that again raises the Hobson's choice. Do you or don't you want that kind of person as an ally, i.e. the enemy of my enemy is my friend? So that's sort of where that was arranged at. And then you were talking about stunts and how much of that physical stuff we did. I tell one story with two facets about that, and then which is. Sorry, I have to come around front. So anyway, there'll be ice cream later. Anyway, not your fault. Really not your fault. Anyway, so the day we had a big fist fight in the show. Look at this. got me. They had a big fist fight during the show over a pickup truck. We had a pickup truck and we did this fight. I was happy with that fight. I choreographed that fight. The night before, oh yeah, this was a predicate to that. So people want to know what that's like when you have to go into makeup and you have so many hours of makeup and so forth and so forth and so forth. The longest day that we worked on the set, because I made a note of that, was 22 hours. That was the longest day that we worked on the set. But a day of 16 hours was pretty common, and a day of 18 hours was not uncommon. But 22 was the longest day that we spent on the set. The day before, I had thought of a gag. That's what you call a stunt sometimes, a gag. I thought of a gag with this big guy who was supposed to come in the room, and Mike Donovan reaches over to pick up the gun. And like, if you're where the camera is, all I had to do was go like this, and all he had to do was to raise his foot like this, and then I would fly away. I'd do a cartwheel through the air like this, and that would show how powerful he was, and it would show the force of the kick. All you have to do is, I go like this, all you have to do is this, I fly away, action, he ran in, forgot what he was supposed to do, held me down like this, sunk a knee into my ribs and broke 3 ribs. The very next day I had to do that fight with Ham on the pickup truck. And Ham weighs as much as I do. Now he weighs more maybe. And you have to pick him up and throw him down and do all that stuff. And that was with 3 broken ribs. So, you know, you could do whatever you want to do on the set, but that doesn't mean you didn't pay a price for it.
Hi,
So 5 4. Go ahead.
may I go?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, this is a question for you, Jane and Mark, and maybe the fans. How many people remember that you guys were in the 1984 or 1985 Thanksgiving Day Parade? You guys were in there, because I'm a big fan.
Okay, so I guess he's asking what you remember about being a part of Thanksgiving Day Parade.
Oh, in New York.
Yes.
Yes!
I so remember that. I remember it being the most coldest day. And
She's not kidding.
And I remember wearing like my Diana suits. And I remember I was really like this shaking.
Yeah, that wasn't a shave, that was rictus.
That day will be imprinted in my mind forever. It was really exciting because there are thousands and thousands. I mean, that was the heyday of V, and it never ceased to amaze me, the amount of people that love the show and the crowds.
They're wonderful memories of that. Here's another thought for everybody, is that I was a bit more veteran than many of the members of the crew, of the cast of V by that time. So I made sure, as part of my wardrobe, that I always had a jacket. And I remember the first time that I did a close-up with a pair of gloves on, I got a note from up in the offices that said, "Tell Mark to lose the gloves." I sent a note back saying, "You climb over these rusty cars." And so there was no more question about that. So in that parade, and I remember quite well, you and I said, the cold in New York, in Manhattan, on that island, the cold comes up through the ground, through your knees. It goes like this. It doesn't get you this way. It comes up like this. But it also talks to community, and it talks to spirit, because they gave us a sort of a silly thing to ride, a rocket ship, which was a little phallic, but it was a rocket ship. And so we stood, and as we passed each section down this block and this block and this block, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people, all we did was yell, "New York," and they would go, "Wow." New York, wow. New York, New York, New York. And when you think of the history of New York, both past and present, more recent, you see what a powerful community that is, and how powerful, by implication, all of our communities are. That's it.
Okay, actually, we have one more question. One more, just one more.
Hey, first I want to address Mark and just say you were probably the first hero I remember. I was 9 who didn't have superpowers. He just had the drive and will for truth. So I thought that was pretty amazing. My heroes before that were, Luke Skywalker, and he had the Force. But you were just a guy who was trying to do the right thing. So I thought that was a lesson that probably everybody who watched the show learned as kids. And then for Jane, we hear now a lot about, every time there's a position of a woman of power or whatever, we're like, oh, isn't this great? There's this woman of power that hasn't been done. But I remember as a kid you being a pretty powerful woman in the show. And I know you were sinister, but I kind of compared you at the time. You were kind of powerful like a Princess Leia or Sigourney Weaver Ripley. You were a woman who had authority, and I just remember like kind of loving to hate you in the show. Like, but she's powerful, right? So I remember you being like the first woman of power that was really impactful, that I really hate. You were sort of like the female Darth Vader in my mind. But anyway, I just want to let you know that when I hear people say, there's this woman of power, and this is a new thing in entertainment, I don't think so. I think you were one of those. So.
Well, it's kind of tricky. You're occasionally, like, orders that you gave were questioned, everything else, and you really had to prove yourself on many occasions.
No, that's right. But I was very, sneaky. Like, I used whatever I needed to regain power again. So, that was so much fun.
These positions in international celebrity are very highly sought after. They're highly contested. There's a great deal of struggle, and art and life really do mirror one another. This is an extraordinarily powerful woman, and she carries it gracefully and modestly, and she's sweet and funny, and she's all those things, and charismatic. But there's a lot of metal in this personality. This is a real role model for people. This is a great thing. And about the love-hate thing.
All right, guys, I'm going to do one last thing here. We're going to do this for the next B panel on Sunday as well. But so Warner Archive just released the Blu-ray, kind of a remastered Blu-ray release of the miniseries, and which we hope it'll be successful enough that they will release the final battle as well on Blu-ray. But they had, they donated, very kindly donated, a copy to give away at each one of the panels. And so I'm going to do a little trivia contest, and this is going to be kind of interesting because the visitors are going to be the ones that let me know who the winner is. But the first person out there that raises their hand with the answer to this question will receive a brand new copy of this particular Blu-ray.
And Daniel, as you say that, there are people out here who understand this better than Jane or I do. But the reformatting of that Blu-ray is something you might speak to because it's in the original format, the Ken Johnson one.
It was theatrical format. So the show was shot with the intention of internationally, certain television series or made-for-TV movies are played internationally, theatrically, as opposed to played on television. And he shot with the intention, or at least with the foresight, that this is how the proper aspect ratio of how this will be presented. And it was shot open, which would allow for the box screen, or the 4x3 screen of your television. So back then, people were not as accustomed to black bars at the top on the screen to preserve an aspect ratio. And so in this case, that is presented in the way that he envisioned on this particular release. So that's what you're doing. Yeah. So the question is, so the character of Willie, who was portrayed by Robert Emily, that's not him. Wait for it. Okay. What language did he originally? Oh, come on. Let me finish my question. Okay, fine. If you can finish my question and then answer it, I will let you have it. This guy right here that just went crazy. Is this the guy you guys think? Yeah?
Yeah.
Were you right? This gentleman here?
Yes.
Very good. Very good. Arabic. He spoke Arabic. And he was, so his character was supposed to be in the Middle East and ended up in LA. Thank you, sir. And thank all of you for being in panel. There are other review panels in the weekend, and of course our guests are going to be at the Walk of Fame and available to answer more questions and to get autographs. Church or whatever.
No, I
you
just want
guys
to
are
thank everybody for keeping this show alive, and it just means a lot to us to be back here for 30 years.
Thank you, everyone. Be sure to rate the panel. The only way